Good evening. Welcome to News Now on TV360. I'm Thelma Okoro. At least 35 people, including 5 military personnel and a local hunter, were reportedly killed Thursday morning in a bomb explosion around Mubi area of Adamawa State in northeast Nigeria. Witnesses say the scene of the blast is a busy commercial hub. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but all fingers point in the direction of Boko Haram. The sect was recently dislodged from the town of Mubi after it captured it earlier this month. The Nigerian army says over 12,000 persons have died in the 5-year Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast of the country. Nigeria's main opposition party, All Progressives Congress, has strongly criticized the country's Inspector General of Police, Suleiman Abba, for failing to recognize Honorable Aminu Tambuwal as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The police RG appeared before a committee of the House of Representatives yesterday, where he blatantly refused to recognize Tambuwal as the Speaker of the House, simply referring to him as Alhaji Tambuwal. Even when members asked him to retract his action, he stood his ground, saying the matter is in court. The APC, in a statement by spokesperson Lai Mohammed, said the police boss has thumbed his nose at the Constitution by refusing to recognize a speaker who was duly elected and neither been impeached by those who elected him nor removed by the court. APC said the IGP has thrown professionalism, neutrality and fairness to the wind and should be removed immediately, as he cannot be trusted to ensure a level playing field for all parties as the next general elections. The Ogoni people in the oil-rich state of Rivers in the south of Nigeria have rejected the endorsement of the member of the House of Representatives, Dakuku Peterside, as the governor candidate of the All Progressives Congress. Peterside was picked as governorship candidate at a stakeholders meeting held Wednesday, presided over by the state governor, Rotimi Amechi. Peterside was chosen ahead of the senator representing Rivers Southeast in the National Assembly, Senator Magnus Abe, who hails from Ogoni. Not happy with the decision, the Ogoni people, mainly youths, staged a protest in Port Harcourt, vowing not to accept the decision of the stakeholders meeting. They have called on the state governor, Rotimi Amechi, to rescind the decision and conduct a governorship primary. The governor is yet to react to the drama, which analysts say could throw the APC in the state into serious crisis. Meanwhile, despite the protest by the Ogoni youths rejecting his endorsement as the APC consensus candidate, Mr. Peterside has gone ahead to pick up his nomination form Thursday. Speaking shortly after picking up the form at the APC Secretariat in Port Harcourt, he promised to build on the achievements of the state governor, Amechi, if he won the 2015 governorship election. Nigeria's Vice President Namadi Sambo Thursday assured that the federal government was committed to combating the polio virus in the country. Sambo was speaking at a meeting of the Presidential Task Force on Polio Eradication at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The VP, in a statement by his spokesperson Umar Sani, said his conviction that the virus would soon be completely eradicated was based on the efforts and resources being committed to the fight against the polio virus and the impressive gains recorded so far. He expressed delight that in the last 2 years, no new cases of the virus have been recorded and that 88% has been achieved in 2014 compared to 27 local governments in 2013. Wife of Nigeria's President, Dame Patience Jonathan, has urged the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, to ensure that all Nigerian women get enrolled into the National Identity Database and also receive their national identity cards. Ms. Jonathan, who spoke Wednesday after being presented her own card by the Director General of NIMC, Chris Onyemenam, at the State House in Abuja, said the Commission must work judiciously to ensure that no woman is left behind in the enrollment of the National Identification Number and the issuance of the National EID card. She said the Commission must ensure that the EID card reaches the grassroots areas and hinterlands, especially to the women folk, and urged NIMC to quickly embark on a massive enlightenment campaign in the rural areas in particular and Nigeria at large to further create awareness on the project. Africa has always been portrayed as a continent of violence, wars, poverty and disease, but 11-year-old documentary filmmaker Zuriel Oduwole has embarked on a journey to change the narrative through her works. The kid prodigy, who gained fame as the youngest person to interview world leaders and prominent personalities, had a special premiere of her third documentary in Lagos titled A Promising Africa. I was at the event earlier today. It's to these students that Zuriel chose to specially show her latest work before the main public premiere billed for Saturday. Drawn from various secondary schools across Lagos, the students must count themselves lucky to be given the rare opportunity to catch a glimpse of the documentary at the modest event. One after the other, they filed into the cinema to watch the documentary. As we were not allowed to film inside the cinema hall, we waited until the students re-emerged to get their reaction on what they saw.
I think it was really nice. It was creative, and I really enjoyed it. It was really creative. From the documentary, I learned that for us to have a better Nigeria, we should all try and work together, because from it was clearly obvious that Zuriel is aspiring to be a better person in future. Like, she has many, she wants to be a fashion designer, she wants to be a raiser. Like, we should just all learn to work really hard, and with that we can achieve our goals as Nigerians.
I learned that anybody at any age can actually achieve things, and that Nigeria is actually a very blessed country, and if all African countries can put their hands together to work, we can actually be a very, very good nation.
For a young girl like this to be doing this kind of thing, it's a very amazing thing. I wish I was younger. I wish I could do this when I was younger, but it's good.
The 60 Minutes film tells the story, the success stories of Africa in Zuriel's own perspective. It centers on Nigeria and features Nigeria's president, Goodluck Jonathan, whom Zuriel had a rare one-on-one sit-down interview with.
What are you doing in order to make Nigeria leader in Africa in all areas, such as economy, technology, and research?
Also interviewed were 4 other individuals: Nigerian athlete Blessing Okagbari, Heritage Bank CEO Ife Sekibo, fashion designer Lisa Folawiyo, and educationist Lai Koiki, all of whom Zuriel identified as people who have made huge impacts on different sectors of the country.
This is my third documentary I've created, and the reason I create documentaries is to show the positive side of the African continent, because usually on the news, whenever they mention Africa, they mostly show the negative things like the wars, the famine, and the corruption. And because I've been to Africa many times, I see a lot of positive things. And in this documentary, I'm choosing to show the country Nigeria and the bright things to Nigeria. In the documentary, I interviewed 4 key people I think are making a difference. Well, I'm hoping they'll enjoy the documentary. I'm hoping that they'll be able to see that if I can create a documentary, then they can do it too, and they can achieve even greater things.
Zuriel's documentary may not be enough to change the negative perception she thinks the international community have of Nigeria, but it's definitely a positive step towards that direction. Wonderful kid, I must say. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, News Now continues.
Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on TV360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.
Welcome back to News Now. Nigeria's Minister of Petroleum, Diezani Alison Madueke, has been elected the first female president of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Alison Madueke, who makes history as the first female to be elected into the office, was elected Thursday at the ongoing 166th general meeting of the body in Vienna, Austria. She replaces former president of OPEC, Libyan Vice Prime Minister for Corporations, Abdurrahman Ataha Ahirish. Until her election, Ms. Alice Madueke was OPEC's alternate president. She would serve for 1 year, and appointment is with immediate effect. Nigeria's finance minister and coordinating minister of the economy, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, says the country does not need to panic over the falling oil prices. Nigeria, which is heavily dependent on oil, has witnessed sharp drops in its revenue, forcing the government to review its budget for next year and reduce the benchmark to $73 per barrel. Analysts have said that even though the figure was overly optimistic and should have been reduced further, but addressing a retreat of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Okonjo-Iweala said the economic team has adopted the best approach in managing the economy, assuring that even if oil prices drop to $60 per barrel, the country will still stand on a sound footing. She also said despite the austerity measures being taken by the government, key infrastructure projects like the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the construction of the second Niger Bridge, railway and power projects, among others, will continue unimpeded. The finance minister also said the government is targeting to raise about $3 billion in tax revenues over the next 3 years, adding that already the country's Federal Inland Revenue Service is making directions in that progress. The International Monetary Fund has commended the recent actions by Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee in addressing the issue of the declining oil prices. The Central Bank of Nigeria recently devalued the nation's currency by slightly over 8%, raised interest rates to 13%, as well as increased the cash reserve ratio on private sector funds to 20%. IMF Chief Jean Leon, in a statement, said the IMF is supportive of the actions by the Monetary Policy Committee, which he described as a move in the right direction. Leon said it was pertinent for authorities to always be prepared to manage downside risk based on assessment of credible scenarios and to consider additional measures when necessary. The Nigerian government has approved the sum of 9.2 billion naira for the purchase of cooking stoves and what it calls wonder bags for the distribution to rural women under the National Clean Cooking Scheme. The government says the move is an aggressive drive to engender clean cooking culture among the poor rural women to reduce and possibly eliminate cooking with solid fossil, which is detrimental to health. The government says it would buy 750,000 units of the cooking stoves and 18,000 wonder bags and distribute to the rural women free of charge. The stoves are expected to be delivered within the next 12 weeks. But speaking on our flagship news and current affairs program, TV360, political analyst Ni Akinshiju argued that the government was getting its priorities wrong.
Stove is not a problem at this time. We've been talking about agriculture. When you acquire a stove, what would you cook with the stove? Where would you get those things that you cook with? The problem with rural Nigeria is not how they will cook, because I know the average rural home in Nigeria use kerosene-fired stove at this time. But the problem is getting what to cook on that stove. And so when we talk of hunger, it's about access to agricultural products, because food in whatever variety is in scarce supply for the average rural person, and including the urban people anyway, And the truth of the matter is, when the national government decide at a point in time like this, where you just declared austerity measure, the prices of crude oil has continuously fallen. I mean, it's falling continuously. And you now say, okay, you have little receipts.
You've devalued your naira.
You devalue your naira, you increase interest rates, and so there are so many confusion in the system, and it was not as if you could not foresee the confusion coming, the problems coming, because you could see over the last 1 year that your major buyers, the major buyers of your crude oil was retreating, had actually found its own source of supply. You know, and you had to go more or less to into other segments of the market to get buyers, and you could also obviously see your receipts falling over time. If you have good policymakers, they could actually project into the next 1-2 years and determine these are the kind of problems we are going to have. Now, if we have such policymakers thinking that these are the kind of problems we are going to have, we're going to land ourselves in austerity measure, which means that we have to cut back on our consumptions and all that. Who are those people in the policy-making body that will now say, in the next 1 year, what we need most is stove?
And 9.2 billion, just help us make some economic sense of this. It's a huge amount of money.
I cannot make.
And should it be the responsibility of the national government to provide stoves for rural women?
It's
what exactly are the local governments doing?
Even, DJ, I'm sorry to say, even if the local governments were the one responsible for distributing this stove, what I am saying is there is no need. We don't have a national need. It is not a national emergency that we are so desirous of stoves, for God's sake. That is not our problem. Our problem, as it were today, is enough supply of food, feeding items to Nigerians. That is what I know, because I am obviously in the know, like you are in the know, that more than 60 million Nigerians are out of employment. That is a major crisis. You know, we have issues with our education. We have issues with our health. We have issues with supply of food items.
You can watch TV360 in full on our website, www.tv360nigeria.com, or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TV360Nigeria. The program also airs on LTV this Saturday at 12 noon and on TVC on Wednesday at 3 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 8 p.m. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has given details of a £315 billion investment plan to kickstart Europe's economy. At its heart is a new £21 billion fund that provides loans for infrastructure projects. Mr. Juncker hopes most of the rest of the money will come from private backers. Only £16 billion of the original money would come from the European Union budget. However, critics doubt it can attract so much private investment. There was immediate skepticism from the European Trade Union Confederation, whose General Secretary Benedict Segal suggested the Commission was relying on financial miracles like the loaves and fishes. She said she did not believe that £215 billion could be raised from £21 billion, a leverage factor of 15, which the ETUC argued was almost certainly unrealistic. The Commission believes it could create up to 1.3 million jobs with its investment in broadband, energy, networks and transport, then also infrastructure, as well as education and research. Juncker said Europe had to face the challenge of a generation head-on without a money-printing machine, and described his plan as the greatest effort in recent EU history to trigger additional investment without changing the rules. To sports now. Nigeria's Super Eagles have maintained their 42nd position in the latest FIFA ranking released on Thursday. The African champions are now the 9th ranked African side behind Algeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Tunisia, Ghana, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Guinea and Senegal, despite missing out on the 2015 African Cup of Nations billed for Equatorial Guinea in January. Meanwhile, Algeria remains at the summit of African football with 948 points, which put them at the 18th position in the world, while Tunisia are second in Africa and ranked 22nd in the world. The Côte d'Ivoire stays third on the continent after amassing 842 points, which places them in the 24th spot in the world. Germany, Argentina and Colombia hold the first, second and third spots in the world respectively, as the FIFA World Cup host Brazil retained its sixth spot in the world. We've come to the end of news now. We thank you very much for joining us. I'm Thelma Okoro.